So, Berto, we had the live show last weekend in which we had our 10-year anniversary party.
10 years, decade
10 years.
on.
And we had a lot of people fly in for the show from all over the country.
And boy, were their arms somewhat sore.
Yeah. And we had Lita.
Yay, I was really happy she was able to make it because that added a touch of nostalgia.
Yeah.
You know? And anyone who had either at least seen the old ones or maybe had seen from the beginning would have known, oh, wow, that's Lita.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, Lita. So anyway, let's introduce the podcast. This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I plan military parades for unconventional leaders.
So the show was quite a success for me in that I got a chance to meet a lot of new patrons and people who listen to the show, so this is our second live show, right? So our first live show was the
big first live show ever.
Right.
Like we never had one.
Right, which was just last January,
Yeah.
and that was like an amazing experience.
Which feels like 10 years ago.
It does. But it was the first time that you and I had really met a crowd of people who listen to the podcast.
Right.
As we've talked about before, we sit in my office right now as we do, and we record podcasts, and we talk into microphones, and it's just you and me.
Yeah.
And there's this sort of idea of humans listening to this, but it's not real.
It's theoretical.
Right. Even when
Maybe like your mom listens.
Right. And even when we've had a couple people in the room with us as guests, or we've done small live shows in front of like 5 people,
Right.
it feels different because it's like, oh, there are people here. Even though it should be at least understandable that there are, many people who are listening to this right now.
Yeah.
But somehow them being there is just a totally different thing,
Very different.
or meeting them in person is such a different thing.
Part of it is I know that right this second, no one is listening, except right this second they are.
Maybe that's it. It's like
Yeah.
someday, maybe tomorrow, this episode will be listened to by thousands of people. But right now,
Right this second, they're
no one's listening, except for the NSA, which is spying on my computer right now. I'm sure.
That's true.
Given that I'm a communist, red.
Right. We have been secret members of the Communist Party for 50, 60 years?
Totally. So that was great to meet people. We had a lot of new patrons show up because it was almost like there were a few people who came to the first live show who also came to this live show.
Right. Some repeat customers.
But for the most part, it was new people.
Yeah, we met a lot of new people.
Yeah.
I had some really touching conversations with a couple people, like things where there was a gal who told me how much she appreciated me being open about my life stories and how, bringing that into the podcast, which I told her, yeah, that's why I do it. But I'm glad to hear that it resonates. And also had another conversation about how, there's someone that started listening to us in 2014. So it's been about 4 years. And it's just been a big part of their life. Right. And then when they met us, it's this kind of like, whoa, I'm actually meeting these people. And, I kind of forget about that, but I can relate to the thought because I have channels that I listen to on YouTube all the time. And if I met some of those people, I would also be like, whoa, I'm actually meeting this person.
Right. That's what I've been doing because from my standpoint, I'm like, why did these people fly into Seattle just to come to our show? And what a letdown it must have been, to have actually
imposter syndromes
to have actually met us, man, what a,
especially considering that it wasn't really us. Like we hired those 2 comedians too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Bad
I
but
have been thinking about the times where I've actually traveled to another, city just to meet people from a podcast that I listen to, and how little, like, for example, there's a podcast that I've been listening to since 2006, I think, called The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like a science podcast. And this podcast is like slightly based on that podcast. For example, they have like a team of people they have an expert, and then
Right.
they have like his brother,
Humbertos.
his brothers and his friends,
Right.
and they have conversations about science and blah blah blah, and then at the end they have a thing where they do science or fiction, which
Tough or Bluff.
which I stole to be Tough or Bluff, and so with that podcast, I've traveled to Vegas to see them live, and only had an extremely small interaction with them where
Right.
I went up to them and said hello and shook their hands and then took a picture with them. And it was probably, 10 seconds.
Right.
And that made it all worth
But it
it.
was very meaningful to you.
Right.
Right.
I was totally willing to plan well in advance to fly to Vegas, to fly
so
down
cool.
there, get a hotel.
Right.
Just for those 10 seconds, it was a big deal. And so I try to tell myself that because I don't know. I just feel like if people fly in, it just feels like I should be paying for their tickets or something. It just seems wrong that I didn't give them more or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I picture like, meeting Paul McCartney and how much would it take for me to feel like it was meaningful, right?
Yeah.
And I think like, anything like, playing songs for a few days together, recording an album together, maybe going on tour in the Pacific or something, spending maybe a year, I'd feel like that was enough. Like that was crazy. you
Right.
know?
Right. You're right. So that's
So
what
it doesn't
I've been-
take much.
Doesn't take much, right? Yeah, so people were great. There were some very touching conversations. People saying that the podcast means a lot to them and the way that it has helped them to feel better about themselves, to understand themselves better, and to connect with their family members. There were families who came.
Right.
It wasn't just individual patrons. It was like, people, listeners with their family members would come and they would talk about, how the podcast helped them in real ways to understand each other
Right.
and open their minds.
And it kickstarted my comedic career, which is great.
You
And
had
it's
a-
going really great after that.
Yeah, you had a wonderful joke, and it was hilarious. And so if you want to see a little bit of the live show, go to Facebook and go to our podcast page, and there's a couple of videos on there of some excerpts. And
Of course, they only see the punchline of the
Yeah.
joke.
yeah, I mean, I wonder. So in the moment in the live show, I legitimately did not get the joke, and I was looking in the audience and I was trying to figure out if they got it, and I didn't. And I could see that some people got it, but a lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
And so, so that's why I reacted how I did. I was just like, wait, because I don't know who I was looking at, but
I was counting on you reacting that way.
oh, okay.
Well, because in all honesty, like I knew that the setup and the way I was going to tell the bits was going to be entertaining because I was going to make it kind of goofy anyways.
Yeah.
So I wanted the punchline to be the kind of punchline that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Which is like,
Would you have got the joke if you had heard someone else say it?
yes, I imagine so because it's the way my brain works. So probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, once you said why it was funny, I was immediately like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
I thought of making it a little bit more obvious, like saying like, because Darwin goes,
Right.
elementary, my dear barkeep. And then I was thinking of saying like, say it all with me. And then people would start saying survival of the, but I'm like, no, but then that would have ruined it because.
So you had to be there for this, but
Yeah.
so I actually thought about this. I thought like, how would I have written it to make it a little bit more obviously what the intent was?
Yeah.
And so essentially you're riffing on, everyone thinks you're going to say, and then Darwin says survival
of the fittest.
Of the fittest. But I was thinking that you could have said some other phrase that Darwin is known for, like.
But I don't know any other phrases. That
Yeah,
he's known for.
or a phrase that another scientist is known for.
Yeah, right. Except that my thing was like, because we talk about psychopaths a lot. So I mean, it was definitely an insider's comedic.
Wow.
Comedic.
So that
burst,
joke was
right?
like just to confuse me, but have me get it or so.
Yeah, well, because like I knew my audience, right? So I'm like, we talk about psychopaths, and then why would we expect that Berto would tell a normal joke, right? So it's like,
so well, let me ask you. So when you were crafting this joke, did you think there was a possibility that there would be a lag of understanding?
Oh, I actually was mentally prepared for silence.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Well, you got a little bit of laughter.
Yes.
At the time, I was guessing that people were laughing because you said it like it was
like it was a punchline.
It had all the machinations of all the trappings of a punchline, and so people just laughed because But so that was good. But we have to talk about the highlight of the show,
right?
Which is you writing a song.
Oh, right. I did. You asked, you mentioned, hey, maybe we should exchange gifts, like a 10-year.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, that's cool. And then
right. So let me tell my side of the story because it'll make the whole rest of it seem a little bit more, I don't know, just bad for me. I'm like, okay, let's exchange gifts on stage, 10 years. And I'm thinking, well, it'll be, I'll do something funny. It'll be light or something. And I'm in a store and I see Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3. And I'm like, oh man, this is great. I'll buy the DVDs.
You will pay money to buy the DVDs.
Yeah. I'll wrap it and I'll give it to him as a 10-year anniversary. It's perfect and it'll be funny and the people in the audience who listen to the podcast will know the inside joke. And so I thought, Berto's not going to be able to top this because, he'll probably think of something at the last minute and it'll be like, on the way there, he'll buy something, and this will be bad because mine will be more thoughtful,
right,
and his will be too random or something. And so I give you episode 1, 2, and 3, and then you give me mine, and it's this box that is wrapped, and I unwrap it, and then the box is labeled Christmas cards or something. So I'm guessing it's from your house, or
yeah.
And then it's
a Nordstrom's box.
Yeah. And I open it up, and then inside is a scroll, and I open it up, and it's these lyrics, and it's a song, and then you sang it to me, and so I sit down in the front row, and you're singing the song acoustic guitar, and you have unbroken eye contact with me the whole time, and I, I'm a therapist. I'm in touch with my sensitive side. I value realness. I value authenticity. I value eye contact and friendship. But man, that was overwhelming. And so I would look at the chords you were playing because I was like, well, that's easier for me to focus on. But the song was extremely touching. You sang a song. So the last live show, you wrote a song for the podcast. Like it was your love song for the podcast, but half of it was really a love song about you and me.
Yeah. We were the two fools.
Yeah.
Yes.
And by the way, Michael Drain, I think I told you this, was talking to one of the listeners to his podcast, Unpopular Culture Podcast, our friend Michael Drain. And the listener also listens to our podcast. And she was asking Michael Drain, like, oh, so Kirk and Humberto, right? And Michael Drain's like, yeah, we're friends. We hang out. And she said, oh, I just think they have such a great marriage together.
Ah, that's awesome. Like this is like just now the understanding.
Yeah.
It's like common understanding.
Right. It wasn't a question. It wasn't are they married or are they together? It was, wow, they have a great relationship, a great romantic relationship.
Yeah. So it's a given.
This plays into that.
Yes.
But anyway, so that song, then the last live show was really touching. The metaphor was two fools dancing on the head of a needle.
Right.
Talking about psychology and all this stuff. And then you write this song, which is even just super explicit.
And now in context, I'm thinking, wow, because it starts with the, I admit I was lost when I first heard your song, which sounds like, like a romantic, definitely a romantic start.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the song, if I, remember the words well and interpreted it correctly, was that you were valuing our friendship. You
Right.
were talking about all the different modes we go into on the podcast, where whether it's serious or laughing or, exploratory or learning something and that sort of thing. But it was also like you talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of how this podcast has been therapeutic for you.
Yeah. Well. So let me back up for a second. What happened was when you asked me about the gifts, I kept thinking for a long time. I was like, okay, this is funny. You're gonna find this very amusing because I was like, okay, I can't do what I would usually do, which is buy something on the way to the thing. I got to really think about this because I know he's going to put some thought into this. And I was like, oh God, I really got to and so I went through phases where I would okay, I got to go online and think. And then I was like, no. I got to go somewhere and go to stores and look for things. And it's when I was in Colombia, I'm thinking many times I came close. I'm like, That's it. I'll get this. And then
wait. So you wrote that song recently?
That was definitely recently because
within a week of the live show. It sounds like
yes, that's
wow.
Right. That's right. Because
you didn't have a gift until a week.
I was trying my best to come up with something that was
what were the candidates? I mean, did you?
Well, because I was thinking, okay, he loves Clockwork Orange. Maybe I'll get him a signed something. Then I was like, well, we love the Beatles, so I'm gonna go online and find signed this and that.
Yeah.
But everything I could think of was okay. I guess
now even with that, I feel like my gift is lame because all I did was buy you DVDs of episode one.
I was imagining that you were going. Well, no. But the thing is, I was imagining you were going to be thoughtful about the gift.
More thoughtful?
No. Just that you were putting thought behind the gift.
Yeah, well, I did.
Right. So
I just feel like you thought I was going to get something bigger, and so you went even bigger or something.
I wanted it to be meaningful.
Yeah.
But what I kept running into is that the only things I was coming up with were meaningful.
Now I feel bad. I just feel like a insensitive.
That was my goal.
Because I could have.
That was my goal in all of this.
I could have done something more meaningful.
But
something.
But I think
I don't know.
I think the point is that where you ended up was something that was a meaningful thing because of our history.
Yeah.
And that was the same. Where I ended up was also. See, anything I buy, it's I spent money to hey, you love this, so here, right? And it just didn't feel right, right? And so that's why ultimately I was no, I mean, the only thing I could think of.
I mean, just to give people context, I think for my birthday, I'm not sure, on the way to meet me for my birthday or for the podcast that was around my birthday.
Yeah.
You went to you went to Guitar Center.
Right.
You saw a Beatles LP,
right?
A vinyl Beatles live album, by the way.
Right.
And bought a double live album. I don't have a record
player.
And then you also bought a guitar
distortion
pedal
right.
called Big Pickle or something.
Yeah.
Because we had fairly recently done an episode on Pickle Rick.
Yes.
So, and I don't even really watch Rick and Morty that much. And so, because we had sort of talked about an episode on Pickle Rick, you saw a distortion pedal that, frankly, I've never used. Distortion pedals to a guitarist are very particular. You know what I mean? It's like buying someone, I don't know, what would be
underwear?
Or just something that's very, or buying someone a painting without really knowing their style. It's like the chance that you're going to buy a painting that is exact. Anyway, so you bought me this. So, and it's always been nice because it's the thought that counts, and it's great. Honestly, I'm just that pickle must have cost quite a bit of money. It's probably $60 at the very least or something.
Yeah, but I usually spend about that much on a gift. But anyway, it was last minute.
Right. So that's what I'm talking about is you're on your way and you get you get things that are like slightly related,
Right.
that are funny,
Right.
and you're not hoping I'm going to be like, oh my God, amazing gift.
Right.
So when I got you the 1, 2, 3, I was like, this is pretty.
It's in the vein.
This is pretty, you know, like poignant, you know.
Yes.
So and I thought that's what you were going to do, but you really shot the moon on this one.
I was trying to find something that would be meaningful, and ultimately my conclusion was anything I buy is just like this thing because I know you like such and such or whatever. Whereas if I write a song, it's like you can't buy that, you know. It's like so. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna write him a song. So then that's how that came about. And the point of the song was there were three main things and elements in the song. One was that I was trying to get across that you were a good influence to me. That was like sort of the first verse, right? And the second one was a really great memory that I have, which is the day we recorded "Talk to the Girl."
Oh yeah,
right. And then the third thing, and of course,
so "Talk to the Girl" is a song that Humberto wrote, and we were in a band together, and we recorded it,
right?
And we made are you talking about
the video? Yeah, the day we made the video.
So and then this one day, I think it was the first video we decided to do for that band,
right?
And I basically took the band and
we all dressed up.
Yeah, I directed like various different scenes, knowing that I would edit it all later.
Right.
And it ended up being an epic day because it was a summer afternoon, and then we went out after that to a party at Huber's house.
Your friend's Huber's house,
who had this house on Lake Sammamish and a bonfire, and then we went out to a bar in like Bellevue or
Celtic
something.
Bayou, where my friend Ansgar was playing with his band, his jazz Dixieland band.
Yeah, Dixieland jazz band, and we were like one of maybe 8 people who were there, and they did like one of those. They went around the bar like a train of Dixieland jazz players, and we were all
dancing, and we were like having a blast. And then on the car ride back, we were like going insane.
And so I filmed all that, and I incorporated it all into the video. So if you want to see this video, I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah,
if you go to our band was called Missionary, and if you go to "Talk to the Girl," you can see that video.
Yeah.
So I
referenced that because to me it's like one of the best days I have on file, you know. So I referenced that, and then the third element, other than the chorus was basically sort of the affirmation of the, you know, it's basically I'm saying the core message of the chorus is that you can't really ask for too much in life, but if you can find a soul to match, that's a big deal.
Wow.
You know? And so I felt like you and I are simpatico. We are, you know, good soul matches. But the third thing I wanted to do is insert the bridge as a reference, because you told me like, oh, you always write these bridges like the bridge was self-referential when I'm like, here's how I write a bridge.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I totally noticed that. And actually, as soon as you got done with the first chorus, I was like, oh, after the second chorus, there's going to be
bridge.
One of those bridges. And like the first line, you're like, and now's the time where I sing one of those bridges. And I was like, oh my God, he read my mind.
Yeah. What's funny is in the 9 songs I wrote in June, I actually was very self-conscious about that. And at least 3 of them didn't have a bridge.
Oh.
Because I also tried to write A-B songs, like some of my favorite Beatles songs.
Yeah.
So I departed from my usual.
Right. So for those of you who don't know songwriting lingo, is a classic way of writing a song, especially for pop music, is to have a verse, chorus, bridge, and then either verse, chorus, or chorus. Yeah. And like what's a song that we can think of that's a good example of that? Like what's a Beatles song that has like a good bridge? Like, I want to hold your hand, and I want to hold you. Or, I don't know. Is there a song we can come up with?
Well, what's confusing about some of their songs is that you think it's a bridge, but actually, no, wait, that's the chorus. Oh, but wait, there isn't really a chorus. Like, for example, if you think of Yesterday, right? Like, what's the chorus in Yesterday?
Right.
The verse is the chorus in Yesterday.
Right.
But on the other hand, I Want to Hold Your Hand has an actual bridge.
Right. What's the bridge?
When we go back down to the lower string, and I think of how I play the bass, because and my heart went boom, When she crossed.
Oh no, you're thinking of that's when
Oh, what did I say?
But that's great. That's a bridge.
Oh, she was just 17. What's
Yeah.
that song called?
I saw her standing there.
I saw her standing there. That's
Right.
the one I was talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Beatles, their songs are so short, their verses and choruses were so short that they sometimes would do the bridge twice, as in that song they do the. Yeah. Anyway, so let's take a break. When we get back, let's continue this conversation. What do you say? All right, we're back from the break. If you're listening thus far in this episode, and you're not a patron of the podcast, because I'm guessing a good number of people didn't even start this episode because they're like, oh, they're just going to talk about the live show. I don't want to hear about that. And then two, if we got 5 minutes in, it's like, oh, they're just talking about their friendship. I don't want to.
Boring.
and so if you're listening by this point, and you must sort of like the podcast.
You must.
So, become a patron of the podcast. That's the way that we find out that you really like the podcast.
Support us so I can write more cheesy songs.
Right. And go to patreon.com, please, and become a patron. Yeah, so you sang that song, and I just want to, again, point out that you were eye contacting the entire time, and I'm right in the front, and you're probably, I don't know, just 5 feet away, and you're just looking right into my eyes. And I kept thinking, well, he's not going to look into my eyes the entire
time.
Like, eventually he's got to, recognize there's more people in the room. But afterwards, I was talking with some of the patrons because we all went out afterwards and we're chatting with people. And one of the patrons came up to me and said that the live podcast really, I don't know, confirmed or something that, and was wonderful to witness our quote unquote epic friendship.
Oh, they use the word epic.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. See? Eye contact pays off.
Well, I just think it's funny.
It's hilarious.
Because I guess I don't think about our friendship being epic because, I barely like you. Just joking.
That's true.
I mean, because I don't know, maybe our friendship has evolved slowly over time or something, or I don't know. I have a lot of friends. I mean, I would say on the scale of things, you're probably at the top. Do you know what I mean? But, I have other friends too that are, I don't know, close seconds, I guess. But anyway, the point is that I hadn't thought that was a gestalt that people would walk away from listening to our podcast and or coming to the live show. Like, I didn't think that would be something noticeable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think to some people, they don't have that kind of thing in their life. And some people were telling me that. They're just like, I don't have friends anywhere close to what I think you and Humberto have.
Oh, I see.
And the other thing that some people were saying to me was that to see men value friendship was a big deal to them.
Right.
Because it was mostly women, and they were saying, I don't know men who value friendship or express it in the way that you and.
I mean, I have dozens of friends like better than that, and I wrote songs for them last night. I write songs in my sleep for my friends.
Every day it's like eye contact song.
Yeah. Hey, Joey, who are you? I'm one of your best friends. Anyways, I wrote a song for you.
Eye contact. So that was interesting to, you just don't, I don't think, I mean, we get emails from people talking about it sometimes, but I don't think I'd really internalized it the way that people were talking about it. Just like that would be something that people would walk away with.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because
I think of you and I as having banter and having conversations, but I didn't know or think that friendship would be the thing that people would see or feel.
That's a good point.
Or care about or something.
And it's obviously beyond the song. Like, there are other obvious clues that we have a history, because a lot of times when we are talking about things, it's about, like that time when, it's clear that we've had experiences beyond just like we podcast together and we are in a professional, So I think that that's interesting. Like we have a lot of little inside jokes or little like, oh, that's a picture from this crazy thing, or
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, it is interesting to think about all the various activities that we've done together and depended on each other, because that's the other, and I've had lots of co-hosts on this podcast.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people on this podcast,
Right.
and I've told you off air and maybe on air that the magic of you and I being on the podcast together is way beyond anyone else being on the podcast. Like the way that you
Argue.
yeah,
Psychology.
truly argue or self-deprecate or self-disclose or bounce off of or tolerate me, ranting for literally 20 minutes, and you just sort of listen. Some people crumble under that pressure. That
Right.
as I'm ranting, I can see them losing it. I can see them like, he's ranting, or this is boring me, or you know what I mean. I could see you're bored sometimes, but you're just like, okay, it's fine. It's part of the podcast. He's ranting right now, no biggie. And so it's been a great 10 years, and it was a great live show, and depending on you in that way too, of being able to go on stage,
Right.
because it's basically, there's a rough outline, but we're improvising basically
That was something that surprised a couple people, including Michael, because there were things that happened where they just assumed we had really carefully rehearsed, and I was like, no, not really. Like we just, like you said, we walked the previous night or 2 nights prior through what the structure would be, and we sort of like quickly acted out the beats or whatever, but everything else. And actually, I think it would lose a lot if we had a specific script that we were strictly trying to follow.
Totally.
Yeah.
And our rapport with each other and the ability to predict what the other would do in a situation without having planned it or something.
Like they thought, when I was going back out of the room to get the gift stuff, and I was making comments into the mic, they just assumed that was planned and that I had like memorized my lines or something. But I explained like, well, impossible for that to be the case, because I didn't even know that my guitar stuff wouldn't have already been in the room, because I was planning to do all that earlier and I didn't get a chance to do it.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't have a lot of stage experience in that way.
No, I mean, like I do, as you know, music, and
but actually, when you do music, you don't do a lot of banter.
That's true. Right?
Like you're. So
I'm a little better now. Like I don't know if you remember when I played in June, I probably did more talking that time than any other show I've ever done ever.
Right. And so you and I aren't like improv stage people.
Yeah, we don't have that experience. We don't act. I haven't ever done stand-up, for example, or something like that.
And we don't do presentations that involve improv,
No.
I would say that being a professor has ever so slowly over the past, I just was given my 20-year certificate at being at Antioch, or being paid at Antioch. Actually, I've been at Antioch longer than that. But the act of teaching I think involves some improv, whether it's improv teaching or even improv humor.
Yeah.
And I think over 20 years, I've just slowly, because I used to be terrified of anything close to that. And so after 20 years, it's like now I can kind of do it. And I feel like when I walk into it, it all comes down to having confidence that things will work out.
Yeah.
Like, when you have a conversation with your good friend, you don't start a sentence worrying how you're going to end it. Or you don't ask a question worrying about what the other person's going to say. You just trust that things are going to work out. Yeah. And if you stumble, your brain will figure out a way to bring it back. Right. When you're having a conversation with your best friend, you don't worry about like, what if I don't remember what to say? Or, what if I
forgot my lines?
Right. You just talk, know? And the being on stage is no different. You just have to have the confidence to know that if you start an idea, your brain won't fall apart, you know? And, but when you're super nervous, your brain does fall apart.
Yep. And then you get stuck. So one thing that definitely has helped me, I am sure of it, is doing the podcast, because that is, I mean, we are essentially improvising.
Right.
At least I am heavily improvising on a regular basis. And the other thing is, going back to some of those early videos, my attitude was still already there, as in, okay, I'm a yes and we're going to do this. But if you watch, it was quite awkward.
Right.
Right. So,
yeah.
So I think my attitude about it was there from the beginning, but I had to go through a lot of like not so great content to slowly start being able to do it. You know?
Right. Totally. Same. Carlos, our friend Carlos from Mexico, he has been listening to some episodes.
Yeah.
And he observed that too. He said that earlier on, like 5 years ago, there was a lot more disjointed moments. And whereas more recent episodes, it's much more fluid and natural.
Right.
And probably easier to listen to. And yeah, it's just a skill you learn in terms of, and it's weird to think of it as improv, but that's the closest thing I can think of.
Yeah.
We're not doing improv comedy, but it's an improv of sorts, But anyway, so yeah, the live show was great. Afterwards, meeting people was great.
Oh, sorry, because one thing is like you could bring up a topic like, okay, let's talk about the live show.
Yeah.
And if we don't have,
you haven't prepped for it,
right? And so if we're not in that improv kind of method or mindset, it'd be like, I mean, it was good,
right?
It's fun.
And honestly, that's what most people are like when I have them on the podcast.
Right.
It's like, or they'll say like very brief things.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's because, honestly, I think when people do that, when they come on the podcast, they think they don't have anything to offer when they do.
I see.
They don't have the confidence that there's something in them that's interesting. You know what I mean? And so they're just like, why are you asking me? Don't don't focus on me. I don't have anything interesting to say, when in reality they do.
Well, as a microcosm, I was, by the way, I went karaoke 4 times this week, which is a total record. And so last night I was at karaoke with work because my military parade planning kind of team, we went out for karaoke, and we're sitting there. And there were all these songs. By the way, I don't know any current music apparently, because they were putting all these kind of current songs from young artists, and I'm like, I don't know this. But I was sitting there singing along, because you probably do this too. Like, as long as I hear the little bit of what the chords are or whatever, and I hear someone singing, I can basically make it up, because the lyrics are on the screen, right? So I'm singing along, and so they keep putting the mic in front of my face, and the weirdest thing would happen where I would be like, as soon as the mic came out of my face, I was like, I don't know this song. And they're like, oh, okay. But then as soon as they take the mic away from my face, I'm like singing along as if I know the song. So that's a counter example of like, well, I was doing fine before they put the mic in my face. Then what happened?
Right, exactly. So you and I have developed over 10 years the confidence that we didn't originally have, that that we could start a sentence or an idea and be able to think on the fly, to be able to say something at least not terribly annoying or terrible. And so we met up with people. So a couple things about the show that went badly. One is that, so the last show that we had in January of 2018, I promoted it pretty heavily. I was like, I personally thought there's a possibility that only like 10 people will be there.
I remember you saying like, we might be like staring at my parents or something.
Right. There could be 10 people there, maybe 15.
Yeah.
And so I set up the room with that in mind, of just like, well, I'll set up the room for 80 people, but surely not that many people. And it was completely full. In fact, a lot of the extra seats were also taken that I wasn't even planning on people sitting in. And I heard later that some people came and were turned away.
Wow.
So there was an Antioch person who was running the front door. And if I would have told her, like, don't turn anyone away, we'll figure out some place for them to sit, even if it's on the ground or something, like, don't turn them away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like some people flew from out of town for this, God damn it, you know? And so I heard about that because some people actually told me, it's like, yeah, I got there and I was turned away. And I was just like, oh my God. So this time I was worried about that, and I got a venue that was essentially the same size, and then that fell through, and then I ended up going back to the same room at Antioch.
Right.
So I'm the same room, and it's 8 months later, so it's maybe a little too soon, but at the same time I was getting lots of emails from people saying they were coming from out of town. Mm-hmm. So I probably had like, I don't know, 20 to 25 people who had said, I'm flying in from out of town.
Right.
So right there you think, well, some of them are going to have partners or friends, so that's 50 people right there.
Right.
And then I think about all the people also from town I know are going to be
or
there.
within an hour drive or something. Yeah.
So that's the thing. Right. So that was another supposition, or assumption was, if 25 people are flying in from California and Philadelphia and Maryland and Canada and blah blah blah, then surely there's going to be like at least twice that are going to be in the area.
Right.
Because you got Olympia and Bellevue and, Kitsap County and obviously Seattle and Linwood and, there's people who live in all those areas. And so I'm thinking, crap, like we're going to do it again.
We're going to run out of space.
Right. Yeah. So I had this whole setup where I was like, I was going to have this whole zone where people could sit on the ground if they needed to.
Yeah.
Like we're just going to cram everyone in there. I was just going to like, we're not going to send anyone away. And so in the promotion of the whole thing, I didn't tell anyone other than people on the podcast. You know what I mean? I would announce it verbally over podcast episodes. But I didn't actually reach out to people I knew, like students I know or colleagues of mine, or
because you were afraid of that.
Yeah, because in fact, some people were like, "Aren't you having a live show coming up soon?" And I'd be like, "No," because I was worried that they were going to take a seat of someone who was a more dedicated listener.
Right.
And so as a result of my paranoia and non-marketing, we didn't fill the room.
Right.
And so when we walked out on stage, it was like, oh, how come there's not, because last time it was like
packed
to the hill with people, and this time it was different. It felt different. It felt more, I guess, more intimate, but it also felt like, wait, what happened? Like, how come no one's here? But then again, there were like 25 people who had flown in.
Yeah.
So that was one element. And then the other thing that happened was the air conditioning somehow like turned off.
It was hot.
Yeah, and so I'm on stage and I'm getting real sweaty. But I'm thinking, well, I'm on stage. That's why it's happening.
Yeah.
But later on after the show, some people said that something happened to the air conditioning and it got super hot to them too, even though they were just sitting there. And I think someone adjusted the thermostat, so by the end of the show, it had corrected for itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I came out on stage wearing my coat, my jacket, and my thought was, okay, I'll take it off when I go to get the guitar. But I was sitting there like, when am I gonna go get the guitar? Because this is getting really hot.
It got real warm. And so some people email us about that too. They're just like, man, it was real hot in there.
I see.
But the thing is, like, so this is the second event that I've planned.
Yeah.
And I have to plan it from the ground up. I have to get the mic set up. I have to get the PowerPoint set up. I have to get obviously reserve the room. I personally put every chair in the room.
Wow.
I personally like.
Why don't you ask me for help?
It's fine. But the point is that
I'll help you next time.
And there were some people helping, but the point is I'm in charge at the very least. And so it's a whole skill, and I've realized that planning events there's so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah,
it never would have occurred to me to assign, because that's the thing, I can't run the thermostat.
Right.
And so I would have to tell someone, make sure you monitor the thermostat.
Yeah.
Like, how come that didn't occur to me? It's like, because it didn't occur to me.
It didn't occur to me.
Right. But I had people, because the other thing is, like, Antioch, the building we're in isn't our building. So we rent part of the building for the university lease, and the building has a automatic lock that locks the front door. So our university is inaccessible on the weekends.
Right.
And so I had to have someone let people in. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be able to get into university to begin with. You know what I mean? And so so there's just all these like details that I have to monitor in my head.
Yeah.
And it's really stressful.
So I wonder if for next time we should sell tickets or at least do a sign up or something.
Right. So next time,
so we have a better idea.
Right. So next time, because this whole thing this time, I was like really stressed out about, okay, there could be 25 people there or there could be 500 people there. I mean, there was a thing in my head where I was like, you really just don't know how many people are going to show up,
right.
you know? And so I was getting really worried that what happens if 500 people show up? Like, I don't know.
We are screwed.
Yeah. And so next time we're going to sell tickets for sure.
Yeah.
But let's brainstorm, Berto, about the next one, because I'm thinking like to do another live show maybe in 2 years, like at our 12-year anniversary or something.
Mm-hmm.
Sell tickets, maybe sell 50 tickets or something, or 75 tickets or something.
But I kind of feel like we should do an annual event, you know?
Well, so I agree,
Yeah.
but I was thinking next year the event would not be a live show.
Oh, okay.
But some other kind of thing.
Interesting.
Like a road trip, or we go to LA and do a show down there or something.
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of people in California.
And there are a lot of YouTubers that do that. Well, they'll do a meet and greet somewhere else, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Any ideas?
I'm always down for going to the fire zone.
The other thought I had was to potentially have more frequent streaming shows. Mm-hmm. So we could do a YouTube streaming show, and people could, chat. And then we could respond on the fly.
Right.
To chat that people maybe, and because that'd be pretty easy. That'd be really easy for us to set up, right? And if we could do that, like, I don't know, every 3 months or something, or I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Or we could use Twitch, and basically every time they donate money, I say a less and less funny thing.
Yeah. So we could do something like that. And so I don't know. So listeners out there, let us know.
By the way, I started a Twitter account finally.
Yeah, all right. That night, I was
finally persuaded. It's the best. It's the best tweets. I am the best at tweeters. My handle is Psychoberto, but the O in Psycho is a 0.
Yeah.
So Psycho with a 0, Berto.
Berto, yeah.
So that's the handle.
Is your picture on there?
Yeah.
Okay, so people would know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would, what would make my life a lot easier is if you did all the tweeting, because I do a lot of things, and I just feel like, you have to have a Twitter account if you have a podcast or something.
I guess so. Yeah.
And I just find that, one, the format is really confusing to me. I just don't understand how Twitter is laid out.
Right.
And two, I don't have any enjoyment from looking at Twitter myself. You know what I mean? I like Reddit. Reddit I love, but Twitter I'm just like, it's just a stream of stuff I'm not interested in.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, but I feel like one of us has to do something on Twitter because there's some people who that's their primary way.
I have some followers now.
Okay. So follow Psychoberto with a 0 at the middle.
Yeah. That was a whole story because we wanted Psychoberto without the 0, but someone owns it and they don't use it. So I'm thinking of emailing them. But now I think now I like my 0.
Yeah. Psych 0 Berto.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the what else? Any other memories from
the show?
Yeah, from that whole day.
Well, let's see. We had after the show, we went to the rendezvous, and so I wasn't a fan of doing the after thing at the rendezvous because even though I love the rendezvous and I actually love the food because they had some amazing vegan options. The layout was a little tricky for socializing because I had to make these decisions. Like I could sit at the bar and basically give my back to the other set of folks. Your parents and the other people had to be way on the other side of the bar. So I sort of like the last place we went to in January or somewhere like that where maybe it's a little bit more of an open area and we can more easily move around.
Right. Well, so I didn't know I had to manage this part of it too, but I thought everyone would sit over where my parents were sitting, which is much more open.
There's a lot more space. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of places to sit over there.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
But
yeah.
for some reason, everyone sat in that alcove in the front.
Probably because it was right by the bar.
I guess, but it was really packed over there. You know.
That said, I had some great conversations. One of the set of folk that were there told me they were inspired to start their own podcast. I'm waiting to hear about their first episode. Their theme was going to be like Mystery Science Theater 3000 style, where they would watch a movie and make all sorts of quips. So I don't know how they're going to do it as a podcast format, but that's their plan.
Do you want to say who it was? Was it April?
Yeah. Well, no, not April. But I want to.
But April and Luke were going to start their own podcast as well.
Yeah,
right?
that's a separate idea.
Yeah. But who was this? You don't
I'll
say?
let them. I'm not gonna. I'll let them do their thing, and then we'll promote it if they do it.
Well, I want to just ramble the names I remember of the patrons I do remember coming. April and Luke from Canada, who April runs the fan page. Mm-hmm. Also, we had Nick and Nick's mother. We had Alexis and Natasha and Karen, and I think there was a Jessica, and there was Tasha and Hallie.
Right.
And Emily from Philly. And I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of people. I shouldn't have started on this road because if I forget somebody.
Now people forget. Well, so I specifically had a conversation with Jessica at the bar thing, but also Natasha, because she came out to the karaoke too, and Emily was there too, and like there were several people at the karaoke, and we had my only challenge with the karaoke was that the place was packed. And so we didn't get to sing that many songs. Yeah. But it's a fun crowd, so that was neat.
Paulette was there, Rachel, obviously, Beth, and Beth's, I think, niece was there, Adam and Adam.
And although we didn't get to, we didn't get to hang, well, I didn't get to hang with Lita after the podcast, but we did get to hang with her on Tuesday.
Yeah. When we sang karaoke that night.
Karaoke.
Anna, I think was her name. Not sure. Let's see. Who else?
Yeah, Anna was there. In fact, she came to karaoke.
She did?
Yeah.
No.
She showed up later.
Oh, she showed up later?
Yeah.
Oh, after I left.
Oh, it might have been, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I hit a wall, man. I hit walls now.
Yeah, we were like, did Kirk pull an Irish goodbye on us?
Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that, and I did that on Tuesday night when we were out that night.
Well, but you were like, okay, I'm out,
Because there's, like, back in the day, I was like, let's keep this party rolling.
Oh, yeah.
Like till 5 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
And at some point you would peter out.
Yeah.
But now, like, midnight and I turn into a pumpkin, man. It's like over for me. Obviously, Michael Drain was there. My parents, my Auntie Carol was there. Who else? I'm sure I'm leaving some people out, but those are the people I remember.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What else? Any other thoughts about the live show, Berto?
Let's see. I really enjoyed doing the segment where we did the narcissism thing.
Oh, yeah.
I not just because it was about me being a narcissist or something, but rather because it was...
So to the people out there who weren't there, we did a segment where I threw out different symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder to Humberto, and he responded as to whether or not he felt that he met the criteria or not. And then we asked the crowd to assess whether or not Berto suffers from narcissistic personality, and if so, where is he on the spectrum?
I think I came out at like 15 or 20. And
well, Emily said that you met the criteria and that you were around the same place that she was, which she said she was about 15 and you're at about 15.
She technically said she was not as narcissistic as I am.
Oh, so she was 10 and you were 15. Yeah. So you win.
I guess so.
Yeah. But yeah, so
I enjoyed it because it was like a little bit of a psychology deep dive. I get a chance to use my life experiences in the process. So it's like an echo of what we do a lot of times on the show. So I thought that was good. I also really liked the audience participation. Like we had a lot more audience participation in this one.
Oh, we did?
Well, I don't know if a lot more, but it was good things. Like for example, having the patrons that were highlighted.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool because like we put their slide.
Yeah.
They get to talk a little bit about themselves, and we get to quip and stuff. And then I thought the movie thing was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, when you first put that forth, as an idea, I was like, that's too chaotic.
Well, you had the movie thing already, but my suggestion was let the audience yell out the hints.
Right.
And it did sound chaotic, but I thought that was what would be fine about it.
Well, and then I shot it down. I was like, no, we got to do something less chaotic, because I thought it would fall apart, honestly.
Right.
I thought it would not work. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, actually, that'd be a great way to end it. Even if it is super chaotic, and it totally worked because people gave out, like, I thought the movies were so easily hinted at. You know what I mean? Like for Toy Story, it's like to infinity and beyond.
Right.
Like that's like people would, but people were either screaming in a cacophony so that any good hint would get lost.
Right.
And also, people don't have hints like off the top of their head.
No.
So
well, but in one case, like on our side, it was someone for the movie was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and someone yelled out Indiana Jones,
right,
which maybe should have been illegal to do, but they did, and yet we still didn't get it.
Right.
Like I was like, oh, so one of my two audience members on my team said, I think it was Natasha. She said, Temple of Doom.
Right. Well, no. So the same thing happened on my side.
Right.
The same people who were the team members I had, they said Indiana Jones. Well, yeah, I can't remember the hints that were said, but they get Indiana Jones and they said Temple of Doom, and I was like, okay, well, surely they're going to get to Raiders of the Lost Ark, but if you think about it, Raiders of the Lost Ark is kind of the full title isn't often referred to. They usually just refer to it as Indiana Jones.
That's interesting because for me, it was absolutely Raiders. It was like,
right.
But yeah, I could.
But it'd be like in a slightly analogous situation. It's like Episode 4 is A New Hope.
Right. Well, and it is important to note that we have younger listeners, right, than us. Meaning, so in some cases, these are movies that they might have seen.
Kind
but
of.
like on a video, or maybe not even seen, but heard of.
Right. Yeah, that was fun. And yeah, so in that process, my team won. So we're doing 10. We were going to do 10 matches, and my team won the first 4. And so, my team wins 1, and I'm like, yeah. My team wins 2, and I'm like, yeah. My team wins 3, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then my team wins 4. And I'm like, this is going to be terrible awkward. Because the other team members, the other teammates, the people on your team, were going to be publicly humiliated.
Like 0.
Yeah, but then right away your team won the next 4.
Yeah.
So then it was like 4-4.
Yeah, and that was good.
Yeah.
As if we had planned it, but we didn't.
Yeah.
I think Drain helped even the odds a little bit because he started like giving some better hints. And I wanted to give hints, but
we didn't play the game that way. All right, Berto. Well, thanks for going on that journey with me. It was
really great.
Yeah. As we were heading towards the event, I thought about how much stress and how much work it was for me.
Yeah.
And I just thought about how funny it was that I was doing it. Because like when I spend, for example, 3 months preparing for a deep dive on narcissism, it feels like I know it's going to have value because people are going to want to consume it. It's going to stay there forever.
Right. It's an academic write-up almost.
Right. 20 years from now, someone can, sign up as a patron and listen
Learn
to that.
about narcissism.
Yeah. And it just feels like, okay, 3 months, time well spent. But the live show I spent off and on for it's probably like 8 months,
Wow.
And especially, the month leading up to it, especially the amount of stress, and like wondering and thinking like because like the amount of different versions of the live show I went through, you know what I mean? Like, and I'd have to imagine it. And I I would try to say it out loud as I was doing it, and then I'd be like, "Oh, that whole section is dumb." I had a whole other kind of. In fact, I'll tell you what I planned on doing as a mini deep dive for a long time. I had it all planned out.
Okay.
Actually, I'll tell you 2 segments I had. One segment, I had looked up various quotes that Han Solo had said in the movies and that Captain James T. Kirk had said in the TV show and/or movies.
Okay.
And I made a conversation between the 2 of them using movie quotes between the 2 of them. And as you can see to your right, I have Han Solo's gun and Captain Kirk's gun.
Right.
And so we were going to have our guns on stage. And, I was going to be Han Solo, you were going to be Captain Kirk, or vice versa. And we were going to
say the lines.
Yeah, so Han Solo, the first line was, "So, do you think a guy like me and a princess could ever, And then Captain Kirk has some line where he's like saying, "Well, you got to believe in yourself, otherwise things won't happen." And then Han Solo says something like something else, and then Captain Kirk, and it's imagine how long that took for me to do. Like I had to look up quotes,
look up all the quotes,
find quotes that made sense in a narrative, conversation.
So what you should do is make that YouTube video, but it'll take you a long time to parse all the clips,
or do it the next time we have a live show. But so that was a whole rabbit hole that didn't come to
we would have had to memorize a lot too.
Right, so that was another thing, and plus the show was too long as is.
Yeah.
The other thing was the mini deep dive that I did in the middle of the show, where in reality I ended up doing with you, which was asking you about whether you think you have narcissistic personality. My original deep dive was me talking about how systems work and about how people get into conflict and how a vicious cycle of conflict works out. So,
I see.
So 2 people coming to the table with good intentions can result in a back and forth that results in misunderstandings, and then you end up hating each other, even though neither one of you sort of intended or really understood what the other person was saying or reacted well when your feelings were hurt and that kind of thing.
Right.
So obviously in couples that's really applicable, but I was going to apply it to politics, and so I was trying to find some political divisive topic. And so I landed on abortion. Well, actually, I think I started with something even worse than that. But I had worked up a whole discussion around how one side, so the pro-lifers say this thing, and the pro-choicers say this thing, and the things that they say to each other, the things that they verbalize, or the things that are commonly verbalized, are so hurtful to the other group that they get hurt and then they come back swinging. One, they believe the other group is an idiot, because that's a very common conclusion when someone hurts your feelings. They're stupid. Right. And then the compulsion, the urge is to strike back, and be hostile back, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And so in order to demonstrate that, I had to at least somewhat exhibit empathy or understanding for both sides.
Right.
Which, would have been a very different show.
Yeah, that would have been heavy.
So, but I spent, God knows how much time developing that.
Right.
And then completely scrapped it. So it's just an idea of like the amount of time. But anyway, my point is, this whole thing is that I just kept wondering, is this a good use of my time? You know what I mean? Like, is this, or should I be spending more time on deep dives, actual episodes? So that's kind of why I think we should do a live show in a couple years, because it's just like the amount of time I have to spend on it. It just seems not where my priorities should be. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you definitely devote a lot of effort to that. Especially, and my feeling is, I'm very glad you chose, you ended up where you ended up thinking, because the tone of the live show to me needs to be lighter and more inclusive. And whereas I think on episodes, if someone doesn't like an episode, they can just not listen to that one episode.
Right.
But if they are there for the live show, it's a little harder to not be there for the live show.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that's why so it's a dream of mine, which would be really hard to pull off, would be you and I just did a road trip, like down to LA,
Yeah.
and then over to like New York or something.
Right.
Which of course would be logistically really hard. And then in every town we just meet like 2 more patrons or something.
Right.
And have a conversation and have an experience in like Kansas City or something, and then move on.
We'll start a new band, and we'll do that. And at every town, we'll play one night and do a show the next.
And that would be less time spent by me,
Right.
Because it would be less expectation, right? And so that's why I want for next year. Let's brainstorm about something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because those are usually more like you show up, you do like a panel of questions.
Right.
Maybe you have one little bit that you do, and then you go out for entertaining.
And honestly, that's what other podcasts do. Like Skeptic's Guide, they just record a podcast as if they were doing a regular podcast, but an audience is there.
Yeah.
Like they don't try to make it interactive or particularly visually interesting to the crowd.
Right.
Like to me, I always figure it's like, well, let's make it a live show. Like, let's not, because like imagine if you and I did this podcast and there were like 100 people sitting in an audience to our right, or my right, your left. I'd feel bad for them. It's just like you don't.
Are you still here?
Yeah, you don't want to sit there and just listen to 2 guys yammer at each other. Anyway,
I also wonder if I could be the same. I mean, I guess we just have to be okay with the fact that it wouldn't be a normal episode, because part of the reason I can be the way I am is because no one is listening right now.
Right. Totally. Like when we have live podcasts in front of, like the live podcast we have had where we record an actual episode, we'll have 5 to 10 people in the audience, and both of us are very different.
They're very,
like we are complete, and I don't think
we're having to host them too.
Huh?
We're having to act as hosts.
Well, and I think we just get more nervous and less free and less, I don't know, good with our words
are not as fluently fluty. They don't fluty as well.
Flow's one of those words where it can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
It means like you could flow like when you're rapping.
Yeah, you got good flow.
You're like in the flow when you're doing something that is
you're in the zone.
Effortless.
Yeah.
You have the flow of water that is, and then you have your menstrual cycle.
Yeah, or you hit your nose really hard and you got your flow in your nose.
Flow of, really? I don't think people use that.
I use it all the time.
Oh, wait, I have a nose flow.
I have a nose flow.
And then
my nose is flowing again.
And then there's Florina, which, will be reduced to flow.
That's true. And there's fluoride.
But no one refers to that as flow.
Well, when I brush my teeth, I got the flow.
That's what you do? You're like, hey, honey, give me that fluoride. Give me that. Wait, God damn it. Give me that toothpaste with the flow in it.
Yeah.
That's what you say?
That's what I say.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
I'm like, hand me the flow. The flow toothpaste.
Yeah. All right. Well, that does it for that, episode of Psychology in Seattle.
We've lost the flow.
For those of you who missed a live show, don't you regret it now?
Oh, I regret it.
Yeah, you would have regretted that kind of excellent banter back and forth. Please take care of yourself because
you deserve it.